What's up, everybody? I am loving the sombrero. Probably one of my favorite purchases I made when I was in Mexico last week. And tonight's video, I wanted to talk about intensifiers because no matter where I am in the world, I see people overusing them. And what is an intensifier, by the way? So, intensifiers are a means of pushing past failure and creating more lactic acid, burn up, muscle pump, whatever you want to deduce it to. But it's supersets, drop sets, rest pauses, giant sets, widowmakers, um, forced reps, things like that. So you might not know what all those are, but basically the idea is that you're going to hit failure with your normal, in most situations, you're going to hit failure with your normal weights. Then you're going to do something like a drop set, which you're going to then decrease the weight by whatever percentage you want, and then start repping out as many as you can to failure, and possibly do a couple more cycles of that until there's barely any weight on the bar, but it feels like a ton. Now, the problem is I see a lot of people, in particular with things like drop sets and supersets, you see people overdoing the hell out of them, like repeatedly. And the problem with that is where you're going to progress to doing it that way. Maybe in the very, very short term, like let's say a few weeks, maybe a month, you might be able to add 5 pounds to the top weight of the straight set, and then maybe add a little bit to the drop sets preceding it. But let's be honest here, that's not going to continue for a very long amount of time at all if you decide to go about it in that not so smart way. And 3 weeks to a month, that's a tiny blip in time. That's not actual linear progress over a long period of time, which is what we're looking for. It's going to dwindle very quickly, and it's not going to elicit the response you're hoping it does. So you're basically you're fatiguing yourself out with a bunch of junk volume. Junk volume would be, well, okay, let me explain junk volume. So junk volume would essentially be you're using weights light enough that it's not fulfilling one or more of the components that you need to build muscle very fully. And after you've been lifting for a while, junk volume you want to avoid at all costs. So, for instance, like the main components for muscle building would be mechanical tension. That's really important. That would be like you being able to produce the best contractile force and maintain tension in the stretch position on a lift. That would be mechanical tension. Then we have metabolic stress, which would be just the systemic stress your body's getting put under. For instance, if you were to squat a ton of weight to failure, that would elicit the most metabolic stress on your body. And then lastly, we're looking at intensity. So intensity would essentially be getting to failure or as close to failure as possible. There's been more studies that have come out lately that have demonstrated that you're getting a almost similar, I believe it is a similar actually, muscle growth response from being within a rep to failure than actually hitting true failure. I recommend just going to failure, I'm going to be honest. Now, the risk assessment needs to be there as well. Like if your form's going to shit, maybe don't squat like a dog taking a poop. That's probably not a good idea for you. But it's really important to have really high intensity when you're training. And by doing those three things, you're going to elicit a muscle building response. Also given that, other things are into play. Like you can't just lift like that and eat like shit. It's not going to work that way. This is with the givens that your diet's in check, you're sleeping enough, things like that, because you're going to stop progressing at a fast rate or at all over time if you're not teeing off on those things. So that's important. Now, intensity is an interesting one because most intensifiers, or probably all of them, they're playing off of the intensity factor. So, for instance, if I were to do forced reps, that's something I could only do with a training partner. Or you could grab a random person in the gym, but they're not really going to know what you're talking about. Forced reps would be if I were to go all the way to failure where I can't even lift the bar another rep on a lift, and now I have the training partner completing the concentric portion to lift for me. So let's say I failed on a bench press. Boom, it's on my chest, can't move it at all. Now the training partner is going to lift the bar up all the way to the top, and then he's going to let go, and I'm going to control the eccentric on the way down. Doing it that way, I'm pushing past failure in a unique way. And also, if you were to do something like a true drop set, like you can do drop sets on your own, but a true drop set would be having a training partner with you, because they can strip the weight off the bar in a faster manner for you. Because if let's say you're doing a leg press and you want to do drop sets on it, now you're having to, like, you're fatigued out really far, and now you're having to get off the leg press and then walk to each side and take the plates off. It ends up resembling more of a rest pause scenario because of the time taken to get back under the weight than an actual true drop set. So those are two things where training partner would come into play. But oh, and by the way, please don't do forced reps on bench press. I know that was the example here, but I have seen way too many people tear their pecs doing it that way. It's just it's such a bad idea. I don't want to ever do that. And chest is one of my strong points, so please don't. Or go do it and don't listen. I don't know. I'm just trying to help you out, man. So yeah, you have the intensifiers that people are incorporating, and you see like some people in the gym, like they're doing an entire workout of supersets. Like they're grabbing 3-4 pieces of equipment, boom 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 boom, 10 reps, run to the next thing, boom 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 boom, 10 reps, and they're doing that, and they're never able to use meaningful enough weight to capitalize on the metabolic stress or the mechanical tension of it. But they're shuttling a ton of blood into the muscle. So this is where people have that cognitive bias in their head where they're like, well, I feel it more, so it must be working more. And that's not true, because two of the main components of muscle building are not being completed to their absolute full value. And people really overdo supersets a lot. That's probably one of the main ones. Drop sets is another one. Like I see people like they're doing a drop set after every damn lift, and it's like, okay, well, you see these people over time, and it's like, okay, well, how much more weight have you bench pressed over the past 2 years? Is it still within 10 pounds of what it was 2 years ago? With that, like, I don't know why it got that far, but that's a good indication that you should not be doing it that way. Most of your muscle building is going to take place within your straight sets, which is a straight set is just a set as it is, like doing 8 reps. But you could also, I recommend splashing them in. I like using that verbiage because splashing it in implies you're using them very sparingly and at important moments. So splashing in an intensifier would be like, let's say I'm doing bicep curls on with dumbbells or a cable, and I reach failure on the very last set of a certain movement I'm doing. Now I'm going to either drop the weight on a cable or grab slightly less heavy dumbbells, and I'm going to drop set that, or I'm going to keep the same weight and potentially just do partial reps where I'm not doing the full range of motion, but I'm squeezing more blood into the tissue. I see nothing wrong with that because you're throwing them in sparingly, and that's where it could be most beneficial. It's like that mindset you always hear where less is more. Like, that's very true. You just want to avoid doing them the whole time. You don't want the whole contents of your workout to be intensifiers. You're not going to get anywhere. But it's nice to switch things up and throw some in every now and then. For instance, like you see some people online, they're doing tricep push downs, and once they can't reach full range anymore, they're just like squeezing out as many partials as they can. That's fine. That's fine. It's an isolation. They're doing it towards the end of their working sets. Nothing wrong with that. That would actually probably help you a bit. Now, it's also important to know, like, if you're also like cutting weight and eating in like doesn't have to be a super aggressive deficit, but you start throwing a bunch of intensifiers in, you're actually going to be burning through a lot of muscle tissue on that. Your tissue is not as engorged as it would be with glycogen, and you're going to deplete all your carb stores to the point where now you're going to start burning off excess muscle tissue that you otherwise didn't intend to by doing so many fucking intensifiers. That's why I really don't recommend it that much. And there's some aspects where a training partner really comes into play. Like I said, like I love forced reps. I do, but I also don't like training partners. I get distracted very easily, and it's important to understand your own faults. So I will train alone. I don't want to train with someone else. I don't want to get tempted to talk to them. I don't want my focus to be off anywhere else. I want to be like zeroed in, tunnel vision into the lift I'm doing. And when I'm done with that set, I want to pace around, stare at the bar, and mentally prepare myself for the next one. That's just the process that I personally need to do to make sure that I'm keeping my intensity at the highest level it could be, because that's one of the three important factors. Now, if you're not like that and you're able to actually get a good workout in, you have a good training partner, and it's like someone that's relatively around the same level of experience and expertise as you, that could be so much better than training by yourself, honestly. You have access to so many more things. Like, not only could it be useful to keep the pace high between sets, because, they finish, you go. You finish, they go. Back and forth over and over. You have access to intensifiers you wouldn't be able to do by yourself, like those forced reps. So that's pretty neat when you want to throw them in. But again, you just got to be honest with yourself, because I don't like doing training partners for why I said. I'm sure many other people are like that out there. Sometimes, like for me, like my gym time is like my time to myself. I want to go there. I'm on a mission. I treat it like I'm clocking into a job that I love, and I treat it as such every time. Unfortunately, with a lot of people out there, they fucking hate their jobs, so they're not, they clock into work and they're not trying very much at all, and it shows in the gym quite a bit. But anyway, getting off that side tangent. So, like incorporating intensifiers can be very valuable for you. You might see something like, sometimes people might do a workout of Widowmakers, which is like, I'm going to do this weight on squats and I need to complete 40 reps, and I'm going to rest pause it all the way through till I get there. So like, let's say I need to do 40 reps of squats. I'm going to put 315 on the bar. I'm going to do as many reps as I can till I hit failure. Now I'm going to rack it, take a couple breaths, and then I'm going to get back under the weight and hit as many reps as I can, and then repeat and do that over and over until I get to 40. And you can imagine why that sucks, because your first, run of reps might be like decently high, like maybe get 8 to 10 reps on it. But, given that you just hit failure and you're only getting a couple breaths, like 10 seconds between you go back under the bar, you're going to do like maybe like 2 or 3, maybe 1 rep, and you got to keep going until you get to 40. So you can see why that just completely wipes you out. And certain ones like that are more of advanced techniques, because I'm not going to do that. That's not going to be my go-to. The injury risk is super high when you're doing that on a compound lift. It's like that, you swivel just a tiny bit too wrong, and you just messed your spine up. So keep that in mind. Mechanical tension too, that's where people kind of get mixed up when they're doing supersets, drop sets, all that stuff, because they're pumping so much blood into the muscle. They're like, my mechanical tension's so good, and it's like, no, it's a cause of it's a byproduct of you just moving around a lot. It's not you keeping good tension. You're going to have somewhat of tension, but if you look at like really good competitive bodybuilders, they have built up their ability over time to create tremendous tension that other people cannot, and that's why they're better than them at what they do. It's a learned skill, and it's one you're constantly honing over time. I'm sure some of you have had like random workouts out there where you had like the best workout of your life and it felt like everything was bang on, and you felt the bicep curl from the beginning to the end of the rep, every rep, the whole workout. That would be pristine mechanical tension, and most people can't recreate that every single time, but some people are, because they spend all their time focusing on being able to craft that skill. So if you think about it that way, like that kind of switches your prerogative in the gym of what's more important to focus on in terms of bodybuilding. And the intensity, again, and that's where they all interloop together. It's like a big cyclical cycle of things that all culminate into you creating a really good physique. So you're doing that, now your intensity is really high, you're hitting failure, like you're having a good ass time in there. You're breathing real heavy because you're working that hard. You're getting to failure or close to it every damn set. And all these things are playing together, is creating a really good byproduct. But you could see why doing excessive supersets, drop sets, and other intensifiers, rest pauses and all that, hopefully you could see why that gets in the way of those big important things if you're doing them in excess. We want to be men of excess in terms of our exterior. We don't want to be men of excess in our minds. Because if you get like that, you're going to start shooting yourself in the foot all the time, and you're going to be, yeah, it looks very cool. I'm doing that with the sombrero. Look at that. But I'm tired, man. But you could see why if you just splash them in, you could actually amplify up those things a bit. But if you did them all the time, it's not really gonna shake out that way for you. So if you listen to this, hopefully it was somewhat thought-provoking, informative. If it wasn't, I'm sorry. I freeballed this video. I didn't have written down segments I wanted to transition to, just kind of off the top of my hat, if you will. Hope you ladies and gents have a wonderful day. I'm going to drink my protein shake.